Come
Bring
on
him on
in,
in, Ian. How
Sorry
you
for the
doing?
wait.
Sorry for the wait. Yeah, how do you pronounce the name of the company? Let's settle this debate once for all.
Yeah, Astromechanica.
Astromechanica. There we
Yeah.
go. Can you give us a breakdown of what you do? And I'd love to hear like the brief history on the launch. I remember there was like a video you posted of building something, maybe in a garage. It went viral. It was very cool, and there was some debate over it. And now it's a real company. You raised a bunch of money. So just take me through the little journey.
Yeah. I guess it starts with my background of like I'm lifelong aircraft builder, pilot, fly jets, the whole nine on that.
Yeah.
And
Wait, you flew. What kind of jets did you fly? You kind of
like
skipped over that.
private jets.
Nice.
I built my first plane when I was 17. I did experimental airplanes, drones in like the early 2000s before drones were a thing. So anyways, from that, like I think with like a lot of good companies, you're really just building the thing you want.
Yeah.
This is just not a thing that exists. Unsurprisingly, one cannot just go buy like a bleeding edge fighter jet.
Yeah.
So yeah, going with
build
that, I'd always been obsessed in all the technology. Interestingly, I was working on like this hybrid electric architecture, initially coming from the private jet world for lower cost of operation. It's just like simpler systems. And it turns out there was a really neat technological unlock for supersonic flight. So that's where a lot of this kind of kicked off. And it was an especially novel architecture. I think this is why it was just so alien. And like I had just been spending so much time in all of the various like subcomponents and disciplines there. It's like there's this really unusual combination. When you combine all these things together, you get this totally new architecture. So the big one for us is like transition up to what we call a ramjet mode.
Yeah.
So like there are really good solutions for like I really like what the Hermes guys are up to.
Yep.
Like there's definitely other good solutions out there, but it hits this kind of interesting sweet spot where like we're getting a lot of performance with a relatively, I mean, it's still millions of dollars, but like relatively inexpensive system. And the other thing that comes up a lot is like people are seeing all the engine stuff, and so people think we're an engine company. It was more, it's like if you want to have a computer, you have to make the microprocessor first.
Okay.
But this round getting this done is like finally shifting it to us going into the aircraft development. So
Okay. So you're building a plane.
yeah. I mean, that's my background. Like, I was a plane guy that just needed a better engine.
That's
so
awesome.
I made a better engine. And so yeah, we're at that stage now with the round done. And like people had always seen me kind of like I was like this guy in San Francisco that was like I had a machine shop at a manufacturing business previously, so like people knew I was good at building stuff. But we've had just this like compounding effect of like the talent that I have been very lucky to accumulate here, and just the people that have joined on. Because like good engineers see an interesting like technical solution and thing to work on.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love my team. Everybody's like incredible here. So like we've now got that. That then makes it easier to get more capital.
Yep.
Then we've been spending some time in DC. I mean, like Andreessen's been great with this.
Yeah.
And like it's also very important to have an actual customer. I think this is the other way where I came from more of a small business world, and like I wasn't interested in just I don't know, like developing things for the fun of it. Like
what I'm hearing is like maybe the company's like very clearly at this moment shifting from science project that you would have worked on for free to like real commercial opportunity. Let's go full send.
So yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, it's make the engine. So you go in the initial like demonstrator phase. So demonstrator the engine, that got the money to now build the demonstrator aircraft. The one we're pushing for is the world's first trans-Pacific nonstop supersonic aircraft. So we could do California to Taiwan without refueling in under 4 hours.
Okay.
So
I mean, it sounds like direct competitor to Boom. It's been a decade in Boom.
Not really. So yeah, I mean, Blake's going for like airliners, and
Sure.
So we're focused on, again, my world is more private jets, and really
so is this a Gulfstream? Are you coming for Gulfstream or
yeah,
let's get
it's
specific
more like
here.
we're coming for net jets, if something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Cool.
we're gonna spend the next 7 to 10 years doing DoD. So
Okay. Interesting.
like you need to have an actual. It's so expensive to make an airplane. It's
of course.
It's not hard to make a thing fly. It's hard to make a thing fly that is safe enough to put people on it.
Yep.
So my strategy on this is you go to a space like, unmanned drones, military, where like technology and capability matters first.
Yep. Totally.
You can prove it out there. You can, there's going to be things that are going to come up, and you're going to learn it. It's a cheaper place to learn.
Yeah.
Then you're in a position where like, well, you have an actual business. You've been making, I mean, the drones, unmanned aircraft we're making are like at the smallest 20,000 pounds. Like they're not small planes.
Yeah.
And I'm curious,
is
is the right place if you're developing a new airplane to start with autonomy, just because in theory, after you fully develop it, it's like, will pilots even be flying, or they'll just kind of like
I mean,
almost like
I am a
sit.
pilot, so I have feelings on that, but it's definitely something of like, no one, this is another kind of odd thing. No one has ever used autonomy in the certification and development of a manned aircraft. And I actually think this is one of the ways we can make it a lot cheaper, because ultimately it's about getting data and proving this thing is safe. The only way you really prove it safe is you've flown it. And so if you have a human on board from day one, you can't take the risks that you want to. Like SpaceX proves this with Starship, where you're like, the actual cost of the hardware is not that high. So you're better off being really aggressive, getting things in the
testing.
air, de-risking. I mean, again, you're seeing this at Hermes of like they're making, like the plane is a bit more rough, but the point is like they can make a new plane every year.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like
yeah.
by the time it's like, if you want to get to very good things, you want to do more iterations. So this is our similar strategy. I mean, we develop new engines every like 4 months.
Yeah.
And I think
I
we can
mean,
drive that
Waymo,
down.
Waymo kind of took a similar path where like there weren't random passengers in the back for years, and you'd see, oh, there's just a safety driver in there, and then
Yeah.
eventually they pull the safety driver out and put the passenger in the back.
Exactly, yeah. You just want to spend time, or you can map out all these weird little edge cases, things like that. So that's a big part of how we tackle this. And like it's so yeah, you always want to go for like big lessons, very important lessons as inexpensively as possible, because eventually you kind of lock into a point where like everything will be so expensive that you don't want to make any changes. It's just too costly to do it at that point. So that's where I think ultimately we can actually get to the passenger flight point quicker and cheaper by starting an entire unmanned aircraft business first, because it's functionally quite similar in the technical challenges. And yeah, we can de-risk it all, learn all the hard lessons, and in the meantime, like it's also very cool just getting to make these things. So it's photogenic work. Everybody loves seeing the engines on Twitter and stuff like that.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, it looks incredible. I'm curious. A16Z makes sense in the round. Lower Carbon was a big logo there. Is that Saka and his team saying like this is really cool, we want to back it, or is there is it a fuel efficiency kind of thing in the long run?
Yeah. The very first check, institutional check into the company was actually Lower Carbon, and Xiao at Lower Carbon was my guy.
Nice.
And he was betting on it was just me in the machine shop, and I had was getting close to that first prototype. And so yeah, from there, the system, we get the range because it is more efficient. So yeah, there's just an obvious efficiency argument here. The other one for civil applications, not for DoD, but for civil, is taking a page out of the rocket book. We don't plan to use jet fuel. So rockets have switched to LNG or liquid methane. If you just swap to that fuel, it's 30% less CO2, just as direct fuel swap. It's more energy per unit weight. It's 50 megajoules versus 42 per kilogram. Whole bunch of benefits. There's a reason the rocket folks went to it. So this is another one of those kind of insane bets for like if you're Boeing or someone, like you're not going to suggest a thing like that. But when you're starting from nothing, you can make these bigger bets. So yeah, if you were to do the combination of the engine plus the fuel change, you're around 60% less CO2. And then there's guys like I love Casey Handmer at Terraform. There's a lot of folks working on synthetic fuels. If you have an engine architecture around LNG, I think that's the best fuel for electrosynthesis. So if you want to have like inexpensive decarbonized fuel, it's also your best option. So like options that first solve for economics of like LNG is a tenth the price of jet fuel. So first make it affordable, then you can go for the clean stuff after that, where I mean it is already cleaner, and then you can just fully decarbonize from there. Or but first stay alive as a company. So first solve our economics, then go for that.
Smart. Bit of a random question, but I'm curious since you're an aviation nerd. China earlier this week dramatically canceled some Boeing orders. They have their own internal aircraft. It's like COMAC, the C919.
Yeah.
Do you see them like permanently trying to shift over to that? Or is it just so hard to build a plane that they're going to kind of keep coming back to Boeing and Airbus over time?
Yeah, it's tough to say on that. I would say, well, engines are harder, and to that end, I think even they're using, just as we actually use Pratt & Whitney and GE components, things like that, and what we're doing. That's sort of like being TSMC. That one, I don't think they could get figured out anytime soon. And the COMAC uses, still American engines, so I'm pretty sure at least. So that one's harder. On the whole airframe, I think they could get it figured out. I'm sure it just depends on how, as with all these things, it's just a money pit. How much do you want to throw into it?
But why is it so? So what's the componentry of like the J35 then? Why can they do that? But which is like a defense application versus a commercial.
It's so, again, to this thing of it's not hard to make a thing work and fly. I mean, I did this in my shop kind of as proof of like getting a thing to initially go, not very complicated. The economics of air travel are dependent on it never breaking. And that is you don't really know that, like, even Pratt & Whitney with the recent geared turbofan is like, it's going to be like a decade until they get payback on that. And they know how to make things like that. So this is the sort of challenge you run into of, what is going to come up, after 5,000 hours, after 10,000 hours, and it turns out this thing is like, oh, there's cracking on this component, and now the engines, and like, meanwhile, you use what we've got right now, and you're like, yeah, it's good for 30,000 hours. Like the CFM 56 was like, it's like 50 to 60% of all airliners, or narrow body ones, and like that engine can stay on wing for almost 30,000 hours. And it's just so proven. And this is this thing you see in aviation where like, there's always these things that seem really appealing because it's a performance optimization. You're like, well, of course I want to burn less fuel. But when you try to implement this thing that's technically better, it's like, yeah, but it turns out it broke at some slightly higher rate and you already had terrible margins and now it doesn't work. So that's where that's going to come up. It's just not something that's like obvious on day one.
Well, congratulations on the round. We'll win
congratulations
for
to you and the whole team.
An overnight success. Overnight success.
Thanks for coming on,
seriously,
Ian.
I appreciate you coming on and breaking it down for us. Thanks so much.
Of course. Yeah.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye.